So earlier on today, working from home, of course, I heard all of a sudden heard this loud thud.
Okay.
Sometimes you think loud thud, something's fallen over downstairs or whatever. So I go downstairs and I'm looking around the house thinking, can't see what this thud might have been, and maybe someone's posted something and it's just been a big package. Maybe Mrs. E's ordered something. So I look on the driveway, and there on the driveway I see a pigeon, completely dead. And I figured out that the pigeon has flown headfirst into the garage and just flopped and died, sadly. So I'm like, right, what do I do? So I'll go online, find out what the correct procedure is to, let's say, dispose of a dead pigeon. So I find out what you need to do, but it basically involves having double bags.
Right.
So I go, so I'm outside, I'm approaching the bird, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to try and pick up this bird, and it's going to come back to life, isn't it? It's going to be one of those. So I do the tentatively tap it with my foot to check it is actually gone to heaven. And then, right, okay, so I'm getting my bag ready, and I'm slowly reaching down to grab this pigeon, whilst at the same time saying to myself, please don't wake up, please don't wake up, please don't wake up, please don't wake up. And I'm almost imagining what it would have been like if somebody walked past my drive with me, kind of with these two bags, just muttering to myself while going towards a dead pigeon.
It'd be quite the sight, Dave.
And even when I was slightly picking it up, I was like, you're just going to fly in my face in a second, aren't you? And then obviously it was dead, so I had to dispose of it humanely. But that was my morning yesterday, working from home life, Andy. It's absolutely fantastic. And on that note, on that lovely mental memory for everyone, welcome back, everybody, to A Daft Question. It's a podcast where we discuss the questions you never thought you needed answering. On this episode, I've got a guest with me, one-on-one. We've had him as a guest before, and I'm so pleased to say he's going to join me throughout the entire episode this time. From the Cage Fighting Podcast, it is my good friend Andy Gillard. Andy, how are you this evening?
All good. Thank you so much for having me back, Dave. It's an honour. It really is.
No, it's really good to have you back on. So let's just do a quick blurb, a quick elephant in the room. You may have realised, obviously, we haven't done a podcast for quite a while. We haven't done one for like 6 months. I was looking back on my podcast app. I think it was the 23rd of April we last did the episode. And honestly, just the reason for that is just because life gets in the way. We just weren't able to do any more of Series 2, but we're starting Series 3 now. But you obviously have noticed that my right-hand man, Everton's number one fan, Mike, is sadly not on this episode. Unfortunately, Mike can't do any more episodes of ADQ. Mike has become a full-time stay-at-home dad and doing daddy daycare for his lovely daughter, Ivy. So we wish Mike, Lucy and Ivy all the best. So this is how Series 3 is going to kind of work. I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to be sporadic. We'll do this episode this week. There might be an episode next week. It might be an episode in 3 weeks. We just don't know. I'm trying to plan it out. And it's going to be myself and a guest like Andy every week having a laugh and going through these daft questions. So if you've been a listener to this episode, these podcasts, and you'd like to take part and be with me in the hot seat answering daft questions, then just email a daftquestion@gmail.com and let's have a chat and let's see if we can get you on for a future episode. Right, Andy, we're back for Series 3. Let's see how this goes. This might be the first and only episode of Series 3.
I'm hoping there'll be more, but I get the vibe it's going to be like when Mark Lamar left Nevermind the Buzzcocks, and we'll have a different guest each week, and it'll be fantastic.
Yeah.
And then we'll get Simon Amstel in at the end to take over.
Sometimes having those guest shows work, and sometimes they don't. Because I got with Nevermind the Buzzcocks. It didn't really work when they went with guest hosts. But something like Have I Got News for You does strangely seem to work with a guest host every week.
It does. You've got to have the right person. Like
Yeah.
David Mitchell's perfect for Have I Got News for You, but David
Yeah.
Mitchell on Buzzcocks was never really going to work, was it? So, yeah, you've got to know your audience, I think.
Yeah. Right. Let's get into the reason why people are listening back for Series 3, Andy. Let's get into some daft questions. Andy, beans on toast. What a staple British meal it is for everybody. If you just want to whip up a quick meal, I don't know what to make. I've got some bread, I've got some beans, I've got a bit of butter. Beans on toast. It's a classic. I would think most people enjoy beans on toast. And sometimes you can have a sprinkling of cheese, of course, with your beans on toast. But to start things off with Series 3, Andy, my question to you is, what is the best way to have beans and or not cheese on toast? How are you structuring this beans on toast, Andy?
Okay. So, I started off, I never used to like beans. Like, it's like peas. It's just one of those things. It's ubiquitous. It was
Yeah.
everywhere. And it took me a long time to get to the point where I would take beans on toast. But now, like you say, cause obviously I work from home as well, so it's a case of if I've got 5 minutes and I've got a meeting, I'm just going to do that because it's nice and easy.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, it's always in the pan. It's never going to be done in the microwave for me. So pan on, low heat, bang your beans in, just leave them to bubble away. And I'll either go with some Cajun spice mix or some Worcester sauce.
Ooh.
One or the other. Plenty of that in there. Give it a good stir. And then just as it's bubbling, the toast goes in. It's on usually a 3 out of 5 setting, so it's just over halfway.
Yeah.
That's done. Butter that. Get your beans, bang that on, and then it's grated red Leicester cheese for me. Goes on top. Not too much,
Yeah.
but just enough. It needs to just about cover it.
I really want some beans on toast now after you said that.
Yeah, me too.
I was also worried that when we started this chat, you were going to go, Dave, I didn't want to spoil it, but I really don't like beans on toast. So you are going for the classic bread, obviously toasted, on the 3 setting, of course.
Yeah,
Not
50-50
Yeah.
wholemeal and white, so it's a bit of both. Best of both worlds, yeah.
You're putting your beans on top,
Yeah,
and then
cheese.
and then your cheese. Do you go for? Are you having 1 piece of bread, or are you having 2 pieces of bread?
2, always 2, because 1 tin, like a full size, is it like 390 grams or whatever? It would just saturate if you had 1 piece. You need 2 to soak up a little bit of the excess juice.
So you're covering it across
yeah.
both pieces of bread. You're pouring the beans across both pieces of bread.
Yeah, because then once I've had enough off the 1 piece, I can roll it up and eat it like a bean sandwich.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I said before we came recording tonight, Mrs. E asked me what questions we were doing, and I mentioned this question, and she said to me, and I never noticed this before, that when she has 2 pieces of bread, she always puts the beans on 1 piece of bread and leaves the other piece of toast dry. And I've never noticed
Why,
that in all these years we've been together. I've never noticed her doing that, but she must do it. There are some people in this life, Andy, and I found out this with 2 of my friends who actually go bread, cheese, then beans, and I don't know how that works.
No, because like I just imagine it would be like you wouldn't put beans on cheese on toast, and that's sort of what you get in there, and that just seems wrong to me.
Yeah, surely it soaks the cheese too much. The sauce.
Yeah, because you don't want it to melt like beyond the point of recognition. You want it to just go soft but still recognisable as cheese. So I think you're running the risk of going a little bit too far if you go that way.
One of the reasons why I put this question this week as well is I was having a chat to one of my sisters at the weekend, and she was saying that after she'd been to the gym the other day, she went to get some breakfast and she went to get some beans on toast at a cafe. And she ordered the beans on toast with cheese. And when they brought it on the plate, right, on the plate, they had the toast, they had the beans on top, and the cheese on top. Now, I know you're thinking, where are you going with this, Dave? That sounds quite normal. On the side was a bowl of butter for you to put the butter on your bread. They hadn't put the butter on the bread. So how are
But
you putting? Yeah,
you're not. Like, you're going to have to scrape everything off and start again, but you don't want to take the beans off because they'll start to go cold. They need to be kept in place. That's insane.
and the bread has already soaked in the juice of the beans.
Yeah.
So
Oh, they've had a mare there, haven't they?
how do you fancy? How do you feel as well about if you go out for a breakfast and you have maybe like a full English, for example, that it's got beans with it? Are you a fan of beans coming separately in a little bowl on that plate?
Ideally, I don't
Yeah.
want things touching if I can get away with it. I know that sounds a little bit OCD, but I don't want the bean juice mixing in with the eggs and stuff like that. And also, this might be my weird thing, like Mrs. E's with her dry piece of toast. When I have egg, if it's a fried egg, I will eat all of the white and leave the yolk, and then just pop the yolk in my mouth at the end, whole.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not dipping. It's going in whole. Yeah,
You got a dip.
no, in whole. That's it. That's the trick.
I think I'm probably the reversal then. I will dip first with my toast and then eat the white. Get all the dip out of the way, eat the rest of the dry yolk and then the white around it.
I don't like things mixing though. So if you're putting stuff in the yolk, it's mixing the egg and toast, sausage, whatever you may be having.
How do you feel then about dishes like lasagna that are already mixed together?
I can handle it. I'm fine with that. But full Englishes, they have their place and it needs to be kept such. Like a lasagna is a meal, whereas like
Yes.
eggs is one thing and sausage is something else and bacon is something else. But lasagna is a thing unto itself, so I'm okay with that.
I really like the when you were talking about your perfect beans on toast. And I think that should be a question. I should put out on the Twitter later on about what's everybody's perfect beans on toast. Because I was going to ask about, have you ever heard of any weird combinations? Somebody putting something weird on their beans on toast? Because surely, like for example, there'll be somebody out there who'll want to put mayonnaise.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you'd be a wrong un if you did that. Like I can almost accept tomato ketchup. It would be weird because it already comes in tomato sauce, but okay. Or even barbecue or brown sauce. Like you can get away with that. That's fine. But yeah, mayonnaise. It's like people who mix mayonnaise and ketchup together. I just don't get it.
See,
It's just awful.
my oldest daughter loves that because it's basically
No, Dave.
burger
No.
sauce. No, she's like, no, get that out of her child right now. Get
Yeah,
it out.
that's it. Have a
I,
word.
see, I like putting barbecue in baked beans sometimes and have what I call barbecue baked beans. And I did go through a phase years ago, which I haven't done for years, of having barbecue bacon baked beans,
Okay.
which would be just frying a couple of pieces of bacon and then cutting them up to pieces and then putting the beans in the frying pan, mixing it
I
all up,
like it.
barbecue
Yeah, that makes
sauce.
perfect sense. Yeah.
So, have I got any bacon in the house? Midnight snack. That's what I'm thinking. So we are saying conclusively, then it has to be toast, cheese, beans.
No, toast, beans, cheese.
Yes. Is that
Cheese
what I
has
said?
got to be the last one. No, you said cheese in the middle.
Oh no! Yeah, sorry. Yeah, toast,
Yeah.
beans, cheese.
Cheese on
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be that. Otherwise, no. What are you doing?
Yeah. I'm just not having it. I'm not accepting it.
Right. First question of series 3 done and dusted. It's time to go to listener questions. Yep, it's time for listener questions. It's the time when you send in your questions and we'll try to answer them as best as we can. We're gonna touch on one question that we had right back in April that we didn't get around to answering, honestly, because I put the call out on Twitter for questions and I got no replies. So I've had to go through my mind palace and find some old questions. So I'm going to do this one from Paul Laurenti back in April, who asked this question, Andy. You get £500 for each, so I guess it's for each of us. Let me start that again. Yeah. You get £500 for each consecutive day you can spend in a featureless room. How long are you staying? Now, the rules for clarity from Paul: the room is empty. You can't take anything in with you, and adequate food and water are provided each day. So, completely featureless room. You can't take anything with you. It's completely empty, and you get £500 a day for being in that room. How long do you think you're lasting?
Genuinely think it'd probably only be a couple of hours. I think you would go stir crazy quite quickly in that setting. I suppose maybe knowing that you've got a prize at the end of it, you might be able to eke it out for a couple of days. But I think, like, genuinely think your mental health would suffer if you're in there for any more than 2 days. You would be literally climbing the walls at that point. I mean, if we at least got a window in that room, something to look out of.
I would presume no. I would presume it's just a blank room. You must have
Oh,
light, presumably, like,
yeah.
but it's just nothing in there. You have to probably sleep on the floor. You have to sit on the floor.
It'd be like, if you can't, even if you don't know the time of day, I think you'd go mental. Like,
Yeah.
literally, think you would go crazy. It'd be like living in an IKEA, but without the fun furniture and odd Swedish food that you can find. Like it, yeah. That no, I couldn't handle it. I'm
See,
not. I'm okay. I can just sit and read a book. Then I'd be fine. But we can't even do that. It would be me and the voices in my head keeping
yeah.
me company. That's not ending happy, is it?
You see, like the theory of it, you think, you know what? Yeah, I could probably do a day. I could probably do 24 hours just running around in that room like a hamster, just trying to find something to do. And knowing that you're
Yeah.
getting food and water, it almost feels like you are getting a task to do in the
Mm,
day. But you are right. After a couple of hours, you would be like, no, you can't do this. I need to see something else.
yeah.
Unless you got the food and you try to do something with the food to entertain you. Like if you got beans on toast, you individually picked all the beans out and tried to carve little figures like Castaway. You'd have your own
Mm,
what's the ball called in Castaway?
Wilson.
Wilson. You'd have your own little Wilsons keeping you company.
Yeah. I'm envisioning, and Homer was, I think he was joining the circus and he was creating a tent out of mashed potato. Circus tent. That's what I'm picturing in my head.
What would be the most boring or worst food you could probably have in that situation? Because
It
would
would
it be
be just like, it'd be bread, wouldn't it? Not even
yeah.
toast, just bread. Like, it's just like the most soulless food that you could imagine.
It'd be prison food, basically. That's what we're saying.
It would, yeah. A gruel, porridge, but without any sweetener or anything on it. Just plain porridge made with water as well.
Oh, because I was going to say, like you just mentioned, I was going to say mashed potato because you ultimately couldn't make anything out of it to entertain you. You'd need the gravy to
Mm.
potentially make like a moat or something, make like a castle.
Well, I
Um,
suppose you could do that. You could build your own mashed potato city. But you'd have to wait like 6 hours between meals to get mashed potato. And that's assuming that you get fed mashed potato for every meal,
what would you
which
call
would be the
that?
worst breakfast ever.
What would you call that city? San Francisco? Some
Yeah, I think I was going to say Manito mash. I don't
Manitou
know.
mash, Mashigan,
Yeah,
Mashigan,
Mashigan
Mashigan.
works. Yeah, yeah.
Well, we want to know, by the way, to these questions, by the way, you can tweet us at a daft question or a daft question at gmail.com. Give us your potato city names. What's your podcast about? Well, we asked people to name what were they called? Mashed potato cities. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Our podcast.
We're a potato pun heavy podcast.
Yeah. It's a very niche market. It is actually very niche.
You'd be surprised.
Okay, so that's a listener question. Thank you, Paul, for that question back in April. Sorry it took so long to answer it. And if you've got any other questions for us for listener questions, please do send them in at daftquestion at gmail.com or tweet us at a daft question. Right, it's time for guest question, and it's Andy with a guest question. Andy, what is your guest question this week?
Right. I feel like I might be Principal Skinner saying no, it's the kids that are wrong. However, when did the pop charts become unlistenable? I remember like going way, way back to even before I was born. Pop music would have been stuff like Elton John, fun, up tempo stuff that everyone seemed to love, and has got a bit of a legacy. Like you would still find people listening to it now. The 80s is very much a niche, but still quite popular. And we've now started to see the rise of the 90s club. And then when I started going out, you would have bands like The Strokes came about. And then by around sort of 2010-ish, it just seemed to be pap, for want of a better word. Just stuff that's quite ignorable and quite easily forgettable. So when did the pop charts become rubbish? Or have they
So,
always been rubbish and I didn't realise?
so it's not the top 40 as a show and a concept. It's more about music in general. When did pop music become unlistenable?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically, yeah. When did yeah when did new bands cease to be interesting?
I do think, Andy, there is a slight element of in this one of when did music become noise, old man kind of thing.
It does feel
On
like
this one,
it.
um, I think part of it, I would say, isn't just because music has just changed and evolved, and maybe when our parents were our age, they probably listened to the music that we were listening to and thought, when did music become? People would have grown up on things like the Beatles and the Who and the Rolling Stones, and then people like Cleopatra were coming out and like, why are these girls coming at you? Like, it's not the Beatles, is it?
There probably is some of that,
Yeah.
but when I listen to some of this pop chart stuff now, like Dua Lipa, whatever that is, I don't think people will be listening to that in 10, 15, 20 years' time. Whereas I do feel that there were new bands coming out when we were around that have stood the test of time. And I just don't think we've got that anymore. Pop music now feels really disposable,
Yeah.
whereas it didn't used to feel like that.
I love that Dua Lipa. What is that? What is a Dua Lipa?
I don't know if it's a person or a band. I'm not 100% sure.
It is a person. It's like somebody saying Stormzy. Is that like, why is there a weather front in the music? What's going on? I think you've got a point there in terms of, I think, because of especially streaming as well, and that we are now accessible
Mm,
to any music. Even unknown artists now can easily get their music to the whole world, and there is a genuine need to recognise unsigned talent, and as a society for us to be engorged on content all the time. It does feel like we're getting almost too much, whereas
mm.
back in the day you only perhaps got the real talent, as it were.
It could be. I mean, I remember watching a documentary about Billy Joel, and they was talking about how if he was around now, he probably wouldn't be famous because he doesn't have the right marketable look,
Mm.
but his music is exceptional. And part of me does wonder if that's played a bigger role, is that your look is more important than your sound. And I suppose with the rise of stuff like X Factor and that, it makes it very, very throwaway. Almost no one from X Factor or all those kinds of show really do much anymore, other than like the odd band, and like One Direction don't exist anymore, do they? So
Mm.
I don't think they've got much in the way of legs either.
Yeah, I think
But
you're
I
right.
also think as well. Sorry,
No,
Dave, carry on.
no, no. You carry. You're in a point. Carry on.
I was going to say, just to add on to your point about music streaming now, it's rare to listen to an album, track 1 to track 12, 13, whatever it is, just to consume it as a piece of art any longer. The only way I do that is when I physically buy a CD, which I only do maybe twice a year at this point
Mm.
because I can get everything I want on my phone now.
I think first on the X Factor point, I think that's bang on in terms of, I think it came to a point with X Factor where you could just make an artist and they could be gone in a month. I think a lot
Mm.
of the recent X Factor winners probably never even did anything after that one song, even if that song charted for one. On the CD front, it's very much like when we were probably kids with computer games. You bought a seat, you went uptown, you bought a CD, you got back on the bus. What was the first thing you did? Opened it up, took the sleeve out, and read all the
Hmm.
stuff in the sleeve. And all like you had all the lyrics in the sleeve and that. Or you might have just like random like behind the scenes pictures or stuff like that. Those were the
I
days.
miss that. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't make music like they used to, Andy.
No, it was
Grandpa
all part
Simpson,
of the.
fist in the air.
It was all part of the experience, though,
Yeah.
wasn't it? And you've sort of lost that. Like I listened to one. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Nick Helm, the comedian musician. And there's one song where he's singing with someone, and I had no idea who he was singing with. It doesn't say on iTunes, and I don't have the booklet that comes with the CD, so there's no way of knowing. Like I might want to know who's playing rhythm guitar on a song, and you'll never find that out because
Yeah.
it's just been taken away from you.
And that's the thing with stream again, isn't it? Like you can just press a button now. Search the
Mm.
artist, press a button, press shuffle, and that's it.
And you've got the back catalogue of
Yeah.
everything they've ever done.
So I think we've established from that, Andy, then chart music did stop being good. And what's happened to music nowadays? It's just noise.
Basically, yeah, that's it.
Is there anything new that you would say that you are listening that you do think actually this is more like it. This is music.
I think the last new act I got into was Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, and he's like a he's from the south of America. He's got the sort of country vibes, but with an indie sensibility almost. It's really cool. It's really interesting. It's like bands that you find on later with Jules Holland who
Yeah.
don't have much of a reputation, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, these are fantastic. That seems to be the music that interests me the most now. Is the bands who don't really care about breaking the charts. They're just sort of interested in getting out there and doing music. So yeah, Nathaniel Rateliff I think was probably the last new band that I properly got into.
So apart from Nathaniel and Cleopatra, of course, all music is terrible. We're saying up until what post 2010.
Yeah, so, because you've mentioned streaming and how everything became available all at once, should we blame the Arctic Monkeys for this? Arctic Monkeys and Lily Allen, because they were the first ones to really embrace the file sharing technology to get their music out there. And they were good, but then they spawned a dozen, 2 dozen, 300 other
Yeah.
bands, just loads of people copying them who never had an ounce of their talent. So is it Alex Turner's fault, shall we say?
Do you remember that time in was it 2008 when Arctic Monkeys first appeared on the scene, as the kids say? And literally, there was that week when the album came out, and everybody, and I mean everybody, was listening to that album.
Yeah, I remember it well. I remember going to the Leeds Festival, and it was before the album came out, and they were playing the smallest tent, and the tent itself was full. It was like 5 or 6 people deep around the outside of the tent, people just clambering to get near it. Everybody knew every lyric to every song that they did, and that was before the album even dropped. And then the album came out, and I was over it at that point. So I've been listening to these for a year, and they're a bit boring now. I want something new. But I've still seen them like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were huge for a minute, and then I think they even got tired of their own sound because they then their next album was different, and the album after that was different. Like they did constantly try to evolve. So whilst I blame them for introducing it to the filthy masses, they've done well with it.
So we're
They're
saying
one of the
that.
better
Yeah.
ones.
So we're saying, despite their music being really good, they actually ruined it for everybody else.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay, Andy, thank you very much for your question this week. Right, it's time to get on to another daft question. Andy, teachers, those people who educate us through life and who do a fantastic job. I'm saying that because Mrs. Z is a teacher. If she's listening, I need to praise that job. Anyway, but teachers obviously do a fantastic job, but teachers obviously have a life outside of that school. So my question to you, Andy, is why was it always weird when you saw a teacher outside of a school as a kid?
It would be like seeing a fish flying, wouldn't it? It would be the weirdest thing. Like, I recognise what you are, but this is not your setting. What are you doing here? I remember my first job when I used to work at JJB Sports. One of our teachers, like our PE teacher, came in, and I'm like, I don't know how to act around you. Like, I'm here as a semi-adult. I'd have been 16 at the time, but like, I'm sort of a grown-up at this point, and you're now here. I think I'd even left school by this point, which is still weird because you're like, do I call you Mrs. Malone or do I call you Diane? Because you
Yeah.
are my peer at this point. Like, I don't know what to do. And it's that because you know them, like 99% of your life, your experience with them has been in a classroom, and it's just
Yeah.
this 1% where it's somewhere else.
It's weird because you see at school you see them as like this authority figure, and when they're out of that context, like you're down at the shops, for example, I don't think your brain can compute the fact that I don't need to almost be not afraid of them, but if you know what I mean, I don't have to behave because I'm not
Yeah.
in that setting. But your mind instantly is like, it's like your mind's melting. You're like, I don't know what to do. You're wearing normal clothes. You're doing the shopping. That's not right. I think there was just
Yeah,
always this sense that you always felt like they lived at school. You just couldn't imagine they did anything outside of those walls.
absolutely. I mean, when you think of your younger days when you'd have been out on the town every other weekend, could you imagine your teachers doing that? That they would have been,
Yeah.
surely, but like you can't picture them having a actual social life with other human beings that aren't like the head teacher or whoever's in the classroom next door to them. It's just bizarre. And I
I,
remember going to the gym way back, and one of our teachers was there in like tight lycra stuff. Like she had the
oh,
body for it, so it was fine. She could get
okay.
away with it. Like it could have been horrific if it was one of the other ones, but it was still really weird to see this quite attractive teacher in very skimpy clothes, and you're like, I don't know how to handle this. I'm
And
not
that's
mature
when
enough to put up with this.
and that's when you became a man, Andrew.
Yeah, basically.
I tell you what it's like as well with teachers outside of school. It's almost like other professions, like footballers. If you saw a football at the shop, you're almost like that doesn't like you are this heightened hero, and now you're in this normal world. Like what you just buy some washing up liquid. That's not right. You're in normal clothes. That's not right.
So, like, obviously, you're married to a teacher. So, when you've been on nights out with the wife and her work colleagues,
Hmm.
how weird is it? Because when you think that these are teaching kids, and if you were one of those kids and saw them in this situation, it would just throw you for a loop, wouldn't it?
I think from what I remember years ago, it would be strange of her, like when she was perhaps like teacher training, or she'd just become a teacher properly, and she would go uptown. She may have seen either sixth formers who had just left, or current sixth formers in the same club she was, and she'd be like, "Do I do I go? Do I leave? But I don't need to leave. I'm on my night out." And I think for her that was like a massive mindful of I don't want to see them see me drunk because I'm their teacher, and they can use that as ammunition technically against me
Hmm.
in school. So I think actually in some
Yeah.
ways that scenario must be such a difficult tightrope to walk.
Yeah, you never off, are you, with that role? You're
Yeah.
sort of like, I suppose you're kind of like a policeman. Like if you were a known policeman and you went out and friends were doing whatever they shouldn't be doing, you being there would change their night. And I think if you were in sixth form and saw a teacher there, that would alter your night. And conversely, it would put pressure on Mrs. E because, like you say, she couldn't get sloppy drunk. Like she'd have to be sort of responsible still.
But to this day, it is still one of the weirdest things. If you look back as a kid, just seeing a teacher outside of a school setting,
Yeah.
being a normal person, and you're like, what? I don't know. Did you ever have a scenario as well where perhaps there was a teacher at school that you quite liked, you got on well with, and maybe years later you saw them, bumped into them, but they didn't remember you? and you were a bit like, "Oh no, remember
No,
me."
no, thankfully not. I've had none of. I mean, to be honest, they probably wouldn't recognise me with the beard and bald head now. But yeah, luckily I've never seen them outside of school. Not since I've like grown up, quote unquote.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
had, I
think
had, I
it's been
had,
a while.
I had that once when I worked at Game at uni as like a Christmas job, where this couple came in, and I went to kind of help them out, and I realised it was a teacher I used to have for English once, who I got on with.
Mm.
And so I thought, I'm not going to say anything, and like she just didn't recognise me at all. And I was like, oh, I was like, I'm not going. I'm still now not going to say anything, because if I go, oh, it's me, it's so and so, and they go, sorry, who? It's
Yeah, I
going to
don't
be
know who
more
you are.
heartbreaking. So I had to be like it on the outside. Oh, I'll serve you. On the inside, like weeping, like no, remember me.
I mean, to be honest, I do that with people I recognise who were like kids at school with me. It's not just with the teachers. I was shopping not that long ago, and the girl who served me, I went to school with, and I recognised that. And I thought it took like a second. And I thought at this point, I can't now say, "Oh, we went to school together." So I just phased it out as if I didn't recognise that, and she didn't say anything, but we clearly both recognised each other, so it made it really awkward.
No one wanted to make that first step.
No, and it's been like 20 years at this point, so you just think, I don't care. I'm just going to have to pretend like this never happened and go about my life like it didn't happen.
So we're saying to that, Andy, then, was it always weird to see teachers outside of school as a kid? Yes, it certainly was.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to get on to the last part of the podcast. It's time for surprise question. Right, surprise question time. Now, usually what we would do is Mike and I would take it in turns to do a surprise question. I'm still trying to figure out this format, so I will take the lead as a surprise question this week. So the idea of this is I've got a question that I haven't told Andy beforehand as part of the agenda. It's completely off the cuff, as it were. So, Andy, here's my surprise question to you. The song Sweat, A La La Long by Inner Circle. I'm sure you're aware of that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well aware, yeah.
It's got the following lyric in it. Girl, I want to make you sweat. Sweat till you can't sweat no more. Now, is that person trying to kill that girl with dehydration?
That's not the question I was expecting you to ask, Dave. I do have a story about this song, sort of.
Yes, go
Right.
on.
I'm like 99% certain this song is about anal sex. He talks about her big brown eye and stuff like that. I'm certain it's about anal sex. And I remember as a kid at primary school, we used to have like a cable box in the library, and it was raining one lunchtime. So all of my year went into the library and Sweat came on. And all of the kids knew all of the words to this song, and they were all singing along. And then years later, looking back, realising what that song's about, I thought, how inappropriate is that to have a bunch of 8-year-old kids singing that song?
So let's go back to the original question, Andy.
Yeah, sorry. It's a complete tangent.
If he makes a girl sweat till she can't sweat no more, could she not, in theory, die of dehydration?
Yeah, she would be dead, wouldn't she?
Yeah.
Like her body would have shut down. That's why she can't sweat no more.
That's not promoting a healthy sexual relationship, is it?
It's not, though, is it? No. Well, the other thing is, if she can't sweat because of a medical condition, she would then overheat.
Yeah.
So she would get like sunstroke or something of that effect. So like he's got her either way. She's in trouble there. She needs to call the police and have a glass of water.
So not only is it an inappropriate song for people under a certain age to sing, as you have experienced, but also it's probably not sending the right message out in terms of...
It's definitely not, no.
Yeah. And
that's an abusive relationship.
Is there secret, hidden, alternative motives about... Is it a song about that he's slowly killing this person and he's emitting it through song?
It could be. It could be like the modern day. The song's about 30 years old now. It could be the modern day version of Clapton's "I Shot the Sheriff."
on that story as well about kids singing songs. I remember. Do you remember when that song came out? The "Cause I Got High" song
Yes,
that went
yeah,
#1. And again, kids in the playground just singing that quite happily. And you're like,
yeah.
you don't fully
Just
realise, do you?
oblivious.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's the prize question done, Andy. Thank you very much for that.
No worries.
I think we learned some valuable things, not only in that question, but the other questions we had today. And that's it, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to this first episode of Series 3 of A Daft Question. If you want to get in touch with your own answers to the questions today, or your own questions, or if you want to take part with me in a future episode, just email at adaftquestion@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at adaftquestion, on Twitter. Andy, thank you very much for doing this episode with me. I fully appreciate
No,
it.
the pleasure's been mine. Thank you very much for having me on.
It wasn't the worst experience of your life, or was it?
Not even close. We didn't sing
Yay!
Sweat, so we're
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for listening for this week. It's bye from Andy.
See you soon.
And it's bye from me. See you next time.